we are going to try this. No clue if it's going to work well. I have no idea if this is going to be garbage or not. We'll take it in little pieces and bites because that seems to be the best call. And hopefully I won't get copyrighted or some shit because I'm going to be voiceovering this debate. And so yeah, I got here because the other day I was like, you know what? I'm a white guy and I do not spend enough time looking up, like Black American debate spaces, for example. And so I Googled it, and this is literally one of the only, like, actual results. If it's, like everything else is just, like, a 5-minute Fox News clip or some shit. And that's kind of pushing it. Like Fox News would ever give people of color an actual place to speak their voice. But this is some kind of, it's one of the top results. I bet if I kept looking, I might have found more. But, it's unfortunately apparently scarce this individual is Gothix, if I'm not mistaken. And Gothix is a YouTuber, and I think she does podcasts as well. And she's a moderate, leaning conservative. And, I'm pretty fed up with the right now. So, I don't want to give this person too much, attention right now. And I've already watched about an hour and a half or so of the debate, and it's not like I don't want to be here and shit on people all day, but Gothix is not a good moderator. This is not a good debate. For some reason, they only give each of the panelists anything from a minute and a half, a minute and 30 seconds to speak. And that's not anywhere near enough time for any person to actually elaborate a point and dissect it and reach all the points to it. It's an insult to discourse. And so I don't know why they allotted such scarce time to each speaker. It's irritating. It's very irritating, even when conservative speakers talk, because I'm trying to figure out what exactly they're trying to get at, and they don't even have the space either to say what they're trying to say. So it kind of warps a little bit to reductive, takes and stuff like that. I guess I'll let you guys see for yourself. But I hate how little time they gave. And then this hashtag thing, this hashtag Walkaway, I guess it's the 1814. I guess it's, the kind of name of the event. This guy is the founder. And, first, very, very charismatic, likable, he seems kind. He admits that he walked away from the left, and you hear people say this all the time, as if their original construction of the left was anything close to accurate. They act as if they somehow joined the great exodus, the great hiatus from the political ideology, which, to remind everyone, is the only side where you can actually vote for your own interests. Conservative politics will always objectively be against every single person's voting interests. There is nothing admirable about seeing the Democratic Party or even leftists and saying, yes, let me become a dumbass now and become a conservative, because that's what happened to this fucking guy. He admits that he joined the right or something, or left the left, and everybody who says shit like this, everybody who acts like this, they want to pretend they're moderate, and they're not. They're conservatives. They just don't know how to admit it to themselves yet. And so they act like, oh yes, my noble cause to stay in the side. My man, my good Mr. Brandon Straka, there is nothing admirable about voting against your own interests. Republicans will always, I guess, in the future, maybe we could see a big pro-homosexual, Republican Party, but for the time being, you will be seeing nothing but homophobic politics, not just from official conservative Republican platform, right? The actual conservatives, the actual Republicans harbor these opinions. Just look at how they're all throwing Trump out the window right now. I speak this in mid-November of 2022, and after the midterms went down, conservatives are already flocking to DeSantis and tossing Trump out the window because Trump suggested everyone gets a vaccine. which, really just, watching this party implode is amazing, but watching the reasons why just kind of, really underline more and more how much fascists these people really are deep down. I digress. This event is some kind of like moderate, American shithole. And they bring, leftist speakers who do a pretty decent job, if you ask me. Especially the girl, I think she, for the left, she does a really, really great job. Really, really great job. This is very typical. This is a very typical debate. This is how debates are done, but it's very, in traditional debate fashion, flawed. And debates are not a good form of discussing ideas, of reaching the truth. It's performance, it's theater, it's antics, that's it. It's not actually going to guarantee any kind of legitimate thought. I give all this context because what we're about to watch is people giving their takes on things. People giving anything from like legitimate, very, in-depth and thought-provoking stances to things I've heard before to things that no one should ever have to hear. And I guess we'll just kind of like get right into it and let it speak for itself. Here we go.
People more than the topic of race. This division has fallen solidly across political lines. Narratives assert that one.
Last thing I should remind everyone, I'm going to be pausing a lot. I'm going to let them talk and then say and reflect on what they're talking about. And I know personally as a viewer, if I ever watch content like that, it can get a little annoying because you're so used to kind of watching the video. So if you're watching this, you can watch alongside it, watch the whole thing, and then come back and watch this. Just kind of acknowledging that I know it's a little irritating to watch that. You'd rather watch it in continuity. But this seems to be the best way, at least currently. And we're going to try and take advantage of this normal, standard watch and talk. And I'll do it in bits and pieces. I won't do the whole 3 hours in one video. Probably do 10 to 15 minutes, maybe, for example, for each bit and piece. Maybe even each topic, because they go through topics, and then, we'll see. So I guess we'll just, what I will do is we'll speed it up, and then if that's bad, we'll see how bad it is.
Political party is synonymous with racism, bigotry, white supremacy, and hate, while another political party is credited as being the party of tolerance, diversity, and opportunity. What is the truth hidden behind the contention? Is America a racist country? Do we remain chained within a structure of systemic racial oppression?
Yes.
Or are we all being lied to and manipulated as a means to a political end?
Yes, both of those things are true.
Tonight, Walkaway is tearing down the walls of division and shining a spotlight on the topics that everyone else is too afraid to touch. Tonight, for the first time ever, a panel of left-wing political and cultural experts will debate a panel of right-wing political and cultural experts on topics such as critical race theory, the Black Lives Matter movement, racism, white supremacy, systemic oppression, the black family, crime, economy, Trump, Biden, and so much more. Let's meet tonight's panelists. Starting off with the left team, we have attorney Robert Patillo.
Yeah, this guy's pretty good. Oh, wait, the left? I thought it was... Oh, no, he is on the left. Yeah, this guy's pretty legit. He's good.
Attorney Patillo has worked with and advised Reverend Jesse Lee Jackson for over 20 years and is a highly sought-after speaker and organizer in the fields of civil and human rights. Attorney Patillo has worked as a political organizer and the political strategist for over 25 years, as well as practicing civil rights law for over a decade in his law practice at the Patillo Law Group, LLC. Patillo is also a national voice in media, hosting his weekly radio show People, Passion, Politics on News and Talk 1380 WAOK, as well as daily press appearances on Fox News, CNN, OAN, Newsmax, Real America's Voice, and various other outlets. Next, we have M. Reese Everson. Best-selling author, women's rights activist, legal analyst, and attorney M. Reese Everson is known around the world for her straight, no-chasers legal commentary delivered weekly on international outlets into 700 million households in more than 100 countries and 85 million in the U.S. Next, we have, we're actually waiting on one more person for the left, so we're going to introduce the right now, and this is Delano Squires.
Aren't we all waiting up on the left? Ha 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 ha. The communist self-deprecatorily jokes.
Delano is a research fellow
set.
in the Richard and Helen DeVos Center for Life, Religion, and Family at the Heritage Foundation. He is also a contributor to Blaze Media, who writes about faith, family, and culture, as well as Blaze TV's Fearless with Jason Whitlock podcast.
Like, this guy
His
pisses
articles
me
and his
off
essays
a
have been
lot.
published by Newsweek, the Institute for Family Studies, Black and Married with Kids, The Root, The Griot, and The Federalist. Next up is Shamika Michelle.
And this lady, unfortunately, is the worst. She's, y'all are in for a treat.
Shamika is an author, speaker, and certified professional life coach. She is the co-host of Cut the Bull podcast, contributor of Fearless with Jason Whitlock on Blaze TV, Walkaway All-Star, and political commentator seen on Fox
she
News,
works for the
Newsmax,
Blaze.
and Sky News Australia. A dedicated daughter, a friend, a mother of 3, she's often the topic of numerous articles, podcasts, TV, and radio shows that love or are sometimes shocked by her transparency.
Yeah.
She's also been published in Jet and was formerly an official correspondent for the 6 Brown Chicks, featured on the Oprah Winfrey Network.
Yeah, this is, I'm just gonna give everybody a heads up. This woman has some very interesting opinions, and I'm gonna have a hard time not going really hard on this person, because she does not say things that was only the first. I haven't even watched the second half. I hope to God it's not worse, but I'm not gonna get my hopes up. I guess they kind of introduced her like this too. She's you know, I mean, so much of fucking, especially conservative women, you know, their platform is so, it's so fun, it's so funny, right? Like the you know, the right's always constantly they're being attacked, they're being suppressed, even though they're naturally like more you know, their ideas are more prevalent right now. They couldn't be any less of the politically you know, looked over side right now, and yet they'll of course espouse that and complain about that and wield that, and so many other issues too. Yeah, I just we got a real situation with this person, and I do not appreciate some of I don't know, like, I mean, I'm, as a white person, and I guess I have to kind of talk about that more too. You know, anybody's listening, just, you know, do your own account, take your own research, do that, you know, don't take some white guy's opinion of black discourse too seriously. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. So much of the reason that I'm doing this is to help bring black discourse to, you know, I mean, I haven't really built my community yet, but if the traditional correlation that like white YouTubers, for example, attract a lot of like white audiences, not entirely, but pretty typically, I'm under the expectation that will be a similar phenomenon with me, and I'm going to try and combat that by preventing my community, my you know, my subscriber base, or whatever the fuck ends up happening, from being too white, because I don't want people to be, I want everyone to be represented and heard, and I want everyone to be fucking valued and shit. And so that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm recording this and talking about this and talking about black content as a white person, a white American. And you know, I'm gonna try and do my best to. I can be pretty harsh. It's gonna be hard to keep that in check. I'm gonna hope that I don't fucking, I don't know, like this Shamika person says some comments eventually. There's something I remember. She says something against black men that I did not appreciate at all. And you know, I think she actually does say some I don't like it, guys. I do not like it. I was so irritated and so aggravated from what kind of stuff is talked about here that I recorded this. So that's more context, that's more reasoning, it's enough rambling. Let's continue.
And then we have Malik Abdul.
This one's the best conservative. This guy's pretty
Malik
legit.
is a former President George W. Bush and Barack Obama political appointee who in 2016 walked away from the Democrat Party to support Donald J. Trump. An expert in policy, government, and Capitol Hill, he has carved out unique space as a GOP strategist and an on-air contributor dedicated to demystifying the conservative movement.
Y'all will see.
Okay, now here is how the format of tonight's debate will work. We flipped a coin tonight before the event, and the right team won the toss, which means the right team will be going first. We'll be the first to answer each question, then each team will alternate who goes first on all of the following questions. So for each question, the teams will choose a first, second, or third speaker. The first speaker from each team will have 2 full minutes to speak. The second speaker will have 1 full minute to speak.
2 minutes.
And the third speaker will have 30 seconds to close out
2
their
minutes, 1
team's
minute,
arguments.
30 seconds.
Answers to each question will alternate back and forth from one team to another until all panelists have had an opportunity to respond. Panelists should not interrupt each other while speaking. However, panelists are allowed to use their own time to ask members of the opposing team questions about the topic if they so choose.
Nobody's going to do that.
Everyone understand the rules?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then let's get started. All right.
Let's.
Beginning with the subject of racism. The definition of racism seems to have changed over the years. Many once understood it to mean hatred or intolerance of another race or other races. Now, however, many progressives tell us that racism is a system of group privilege by those who have a disproportionate share of society's power, prestige, property, and privilege, and therefore, only white people can be racist. So, what is the definition of racism?
Jesus
Okay, so
Christ.
panelist one on the right side. You got 2 minutes.
Guys, that's the first question, okay? Like, that's the first fucking question. Like, it starts off great. Like, yeah, let's start with racism. What's the definition? Like, that's a great... But then they're immediately like... God, they're incapable of debating us legitimately. They have to strawman the ideas in order to beat them because they can't actually beat them. So what do you got? Progressives, like who are progressives? Right? We're not defining progressive, right? We're only defining racism in the terms of how black conservatives in this specific instance will want to define it. We're not actually defining it in terms of the broader scheme. And why, as you'll see, it's so weird, right? Like no serious leftist is actually gonna say that racism against white people doesn't exist. So who is actually having this discussion, if not reactionary conservatives? What group of people would genuinely feel that they needed to be taken account of, that they need to stand white working class people yet again? Right? What does it bring? What does it do? I mean, nothing, right? It's conservative reactionary politics. There's a severe lack of nuance and understanding for all conservative pundits, and they have to only do surface level content. They have to strawman. They have to sprinkle their entire analysis with logical fallacies just to make a vaguely presentable platform and opinion and piece to their audiences. So yeah, I mean, who are these progressives rather that are like defining the definition of race, changing it over time? Who are these? They're not going to spend any time defining any of that. The definitions will exclusively be based in defining what racism towards white people looks like. It's like these trivial, pedantic, just useless, pointless tangents that aren't going to achieve much, as you'll see.
I'll take it. So my definition of racism is basically either ethnic hatred, ethnic partiality, so if you treat people differently based on their ethnicity,
that's fair.
or a certain type of ethnic superiority.
Yeah,
Given that, I think any person could be racist. I reject the notion that only white people can be racist.
Me too.
Part of the reason I reject that is because it doesn't make sense. Because if the definition of racism has to do with power, prestige, but only white people can be racist, then that would mean that if a black police chief fires a white police cadet for some reason, let's say he wanted fewer white people on his police force, and the police cadet walked out and he mumbled an ethnic slur under his breath, that in that particular situation, the police cadet who has no power, that's why he's getting fired, is being racist, but the police chief cannot be racist because he's black, even though he has all the power.
Okay.
So I reject that particular notion.
I
think it's patronizing to think that black people or any other group other than white people can't exhibit, as I said, ethnic partiality or ethnic hatred. So if anybody believes that their particular group is superior and others are inferior, that to me is a definition of racism everyone should be able to agree to. That's what we always believed. But again, now racism means privilege plus power. And as I said, I reject that particular definition.
Yeah, so, right, I mean, as I was saying, like, it starts off, like, it's very, like, his definition is very sensible. It's very, like, I would agree to that, like, it's based on this kind of ethnic partiality, this ethnic supremacy, right, like, And I appreciate that kind of is being acknowledged. But as if he couldn't even help himself, right? Like so with this analogy, with this black police officer, he's pointing out that like firing an employee because he's white, and they want like a more like a less white workforce. Let's steelman his argument, right? So let's say the police chief or the police officer who's firing this white cadet is genuinely like a racist based in this like context, and he's trying to get rid of white people in the police force to help bring more people of color, not white people if we're saying they're specifically does that black police officer, do black judges, black people in positions of power in our society, and if they ever commit actions such as these, like firing a white person because of their being in the force, does that even compare to mass slavery, lynching, voter ID law? Like, where is the black KKK? I've been yet to find that or see that. Where are the white Black Panthers? I have yet to see that. I mean, well, like maybe there's some, like, oh, what about John Brown in the 1850s? I don't know, guys. Like, there's some like fucking, white lion group that I don't know about that were like super leftist, and they just wanted to help like bring white people to the idea that we can actually, I don't know, man. Like, even just saying that, it doesn't sound like, it sounds like a fairy tale. When a white person gets pulled over, regardless if it is a black or white cop, that white person still has a higher chance of survival, of essentially not having to deal with any police oppression than a person of color would, regardless of the color of the officer pulling them over. Even though, yes, white officers have higher rates of discrimination, racial profiling, even though like people of color that are officers, for example, can fall into the same traps of discrimination. The point here isn't that that racism is only based on the power plus privilege definition. And I know what they're talking about here. I know what this, I can see where I remember when I was a freshman at my first university, and we were learning about privileges and stuff like that. And it was, for my young, essentially confused, I was basically like a reactionary back then. When I was younger, I was kind of one of these people that I speak out against so often now. And when you change your opinion so much and you realize how wrong you are, you realize it's pretty important to put in the time to kind of undo that work, that bad, and put in some more good. When I was there, like, we talked about this, right? Racism, power plus privilege, right? And I remember being like all mad that, dude, it's pure reactionary feelings, man. Of course, anybody can be racist towards anyone else, but will any white person in this country ever have to experience the systemic oppression that black Americans have faced, that indigenous Americans have faced, that, I don't know. I mean, we could go down the context of women, but white women is like a whole fucking thing to get into, right? Like, like white women can still benefit from white America, even though they're still oppressed from the patriarchy, yada yada. That's kind of a whole thing that's not really relevant right now. The point of the power plus privilege definition isn't supposed to blur the lines. It's not supposed to gray discrimination against white people out. It's supposed to help enumerate, help elaborate what exactly is being specified within the definition of racism, and that is a power dynamic. That is and that's what's so critical when leftists talk about the discrimination against white people, the discrimination against and black people. There is a systemic discrimination against people of color in America, and there is not a systemic discrimination against white people in America. Or did I just say that? There's not one against white people. There is one against people of color, for example. White Americans in the 1950s never had to worry. White Americans have never had to ever worry about being lynched, ever. That was an actual like phenomenon that Black Americans had to go through 60, 50 years ago. Like your grandparents are old enough to remember, like, you know, or great grandparents. Maybe they were on board with it. And yeah, they're gonna talk about the history of this now too. They'll get into it later. Like, oh yeah, slavery was back then, but today is different from now. Like, yes, we all know that. Like, they act like they've got the real takes, and they have to like say the things we already know as if they change the discussion when it doesn't at all. So what do you get? You know, what do you get? You get, yet again, for the 7 millionth time, conservatives completely strawmanning a position in its entirety, not spending an iota of a second. I mean, this first speaker guy, he did an okay job. He does all right to try and give some side of like legitimacy, and he tries to like kind of break it down logically, and the appearance of intellectual scrutiny is initially present, but what you very easily see in traditional conservative fashion is the absolute bankrupt intellectualism that they are so noted for. Yet again. Yeah, I guess we'll kind of just start with that. Maybe we'll do one more speaker or something. Let's see.
Okay, thank you. All right, left team, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think that we're conflating terms, because there's a term of prejudice and there's a term of racism. Racism
Yes.
defined by the Supreme Court in decisions by Sandra Day O'Connor and a progeny of cases thereafter, which deals with, in particular, the ability of the majority group to either negatively impact the lives of another group based upon their racial or ethnic features, versus prejudice, which is an internal idea, the conceptualization of what another group is, an internalized hatred. You can be prejudiced towards an individual, but without a power dynamic associated therewith, you lose the conceptualization.
See, and this is why terms are so important. This is why definitions are so important. I mean, this guy's an attorney, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he knows exactly, like, what, you know, you have to be precise with these definitions and conceptualization, otherwise the intellectual waters get muddied. And he kills it this whole fucking time, just really pulling out the full lawyer energy and going full, like, Boy Scout on the fucking definitions and everything, man. And his distinction here is with difference, of course, right? Like, it's very much a different conceptualization. He did it better than I could, and I appreciate that. That's part of the reason I fucking do this too, is that I don't know why I did that. Sorry about that. Part of the reason I did do this is because I want people to see that, like, how do I put this? Like, I am not going to do anywhere near a good enough job about talking about some of these things as the left panelists will do, especially this guy and then the other woman. I forgot everybody's names already. Yeah, man, it's just like, why does he shouldn't have to be doing this. He shouldn't have to pause the whole thing and like redefine the terms, which is just like words. Like, he's just acting like a fucking Google definition right now. If I open up another tab and just read the like, that's what he has to do right now because of what the right is strawmanning, as they always do, they can't beat leftist ideas. Leftist ideas are too strong. They speak for themselves. Communist principles, socialist principles, the gradual falling rate of profit, exploitation, the idea of capitalism fucking everything up, right? Like, I mean, we can go down the whole line. This is math. This is basic logic and science. You can't beat that. It's proven through the analytics, through the dialectical materialism. But that's not present, right? It's just insulting constructions from the right, as always, in traditional fashion.
Racism, similar to the point which was just made, because we live in a society where throughout its history you've had resources distributed based upon racial lines. In America, our lines for racism are drawn based upon the previous institution of slavery as it was, then Jim Crow thereafter. So I agree that yes, if an individual is in power and uses that power to discriminate against another group, then they can be racist. We saw that this last.
And of course, right, he agrees, right? Like, this isn't, he's on the same page as me, as everybody listening right now. We all, like, no reasonable human being actually thinks it's impossible. It must only be a straw man construction that they have to say this and talk about this and completely fuck things up because they don't actually have a legitimate platform. It's so frustrating.
Week in Los Angeles, where you have the city council president who is Latino talking about a white individual with a black son. That's a racist situation because you have somebody in a position of power able to negatively impact the lives of another person based upon their ethnic background. I think that when you conflate the terms, then you end up with specious outcomes. It's almost as Kant said, with the idea of the categorical imperative, that an individual does not need to actually hate someone to act racistly. Someone needs to only exercise the power dynamic associated therewith, and the negative impacts of that are what we describe as systemic racism that people have here in the United States of America. So I think once you get the definitions together, it puts you into a better position to try to find a way to solve these things. Because I think more important than trying to define or trying to categorize is what the solution should be.
Right.
Racism.
It's so good. Like that, he did such a good job, and that's it's so true. Like, it's so annoying that we have to waste time like correcting the record because conservatives are just intellectually sloppy, to put it lightly.
I'm going to take a shots time.
No, we're alternating back and forth.
Okay.
She was about to kill it, though. Like, she was going to kill it.
Yeah, no, he's right, dude. Like, she's fucking ready, man. Like, this lady absolutely kills it. I really like her a lot. I think she's great.
All right, panelist 2, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, so when we're talking about racism, it's important to understand, and people are
this guy's
typically
the okay
conservatives
one.
and
Listen
liberals
up.
have different interpretations of that. But if you agree that race is a social construct, then there are different arguments that you can have. The argument that race is a social construct, we can actually go back to maybe 1804 and 1805 or 1806, which was the Hudgens v. Wright decision. Hudgens v. Wright decision was a Virginia Supreme Court decision where the judge, there were 3 or 4 generations of Native American women who sued their slave master for freedom. What they had to prove is that they were not of African descent. In that particular decision, what the judge said, he used things that were stereotypical features of Native Africans, which were, and it's interesting, I encourage you to go back, look up Hudgens v. Wright if you want to.
See this shit? Like, dude, this guy's on some actual, like, he's you know, he's got like swagger, and he's kind of going on the elegance of talking a little bit. Who cares? I mean, he looks great, right? I don't care. He's bringing like a pretty legit, like, this seems like it could be a legitimate point, right? Like, oh, maybe there's some like a legitimate conservative question here, right? Like, I mean, it sounds like he's trying to get onto the fact of like how Native Americans maneuvered around like the definitions and these kinds of racial stereotypes about black slaves to free themselves. You know, we don't know. He ran out of time.
Have a broader discussion of race as a social construct, which it is.
And I'll take it from here.
And then they're just like, I gotta like all Gothics does is make sure everybody stops talking. That's not. Maybe, you know, she's just a person trying to do her job, and it's all just trying to get through the event. I mean, I don't know, man. You might be up there nervous, and you're just trying to do it right and make sure everybody's all good and stuff, but it's not enough time. Nobody has enough time to talk, and it's going to be a recurring theme, and that's what pisses me off so much. Part of the reason I did this, and it's going to keep happening.
Thank you so much. I'd like to direct you to another case, the case of Dred Scott, which is really the true and clear definition of what racism is in America. Why is that? Because in Dred Scott, you had the determination that there is no right that the Negro has that the United States has to respect. Now, why is that the definition of racism? Because the creation of race in the United States of America started when Africans were brought on a boat from multiple boats from Africa to the United States and expected to be in a position of second-class citizenship or subservience for the duration of their time here. Why? Because there was some guy over in Europe who said, I give you the right, the Catholic Church was part of it, but I give you the right to go into these countries and take these people based on their lineage and based on the fact that they're from Africa. You can take them and subject them to servitude for the rest of their lives. So when black people were brought here, it was based on the premise of race, and they were expected to be in servitude from that point until they left. We're still here. They're still racism.
All right, thank you.
See what I'm talking about? Like, that was dude, she fucking kills it this whole fucking time. So solid. So solid. It's little good things like that. Like, they got really good left panelists. And then when the last guy shows up too, he's even pretty good. And he even, like, especially because he ends up getting some of the least amount of time, and he still manages to use it most effectively. And yeah, that's the kind of energy. I mean, I fucking love this Reese girl. She's
I'm going to do you guys a solid and let you know when you're halfway through your time. All right, so third panelist,
that was an actually
seconds.
good addition.
Okay, I'm fine with the traditional definition of racism, the belief that human.
Okay, I want everyone to prepare themselves. Prepare, okay? Because you're gonna see exactly what I'm talking about.
Traits are determined by race, and the abilities that you have comes from race. That's the traditional definition, and I'm completely fine with it. I'm also completely fine with acknowledging what Robert has said and saying that I must be racist and prejudiced, because for me, there are certain things that only a black man can do. So I feel like when it comes to racism, when you wonder if black people, okay.
And do I get the rest of the 30 seconds?
I love how ready she is every fucking time. She's like, oh, can I?
Yeah, so
Oh, wait, that's why I did it. Now I remember. Yeah. She's looking in any opportunities. I love that. You can still, guys think, fuck, she's so fucking pissed about it. All right. Yeah, this is just the beginning. And, like, let's say, like, yes, like, that's true, right? There's only certain things that black men can do. Like, at the same time, you're kind of like, it's a flag, you know. It's definitely not a red flag, but you're like, oh, what's that all about? Because then later on, she goes to fucking criticize, like, black men as well as fathers, as an entire demographic, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm forgetting something there, but that kind of just bizarre reductionism. Yeah, man. If you gotta really try to get shock value out of what you're saying, you're not really saying anything at all, are you? Things that are shocking are naturally shocking and speak to themselves on their own. They don't need to be said that way. But hey, maybe I'm just some salty white dude and I'm not listening, and let's keep an open mind about it, shall we?
Go for it.
All right, and we're back to the point of the Dred Scott case. So with the Africans being brought here from that point on to subject to be a second-class citizen, racism has been the denial of power, right to access education, equality, resources, opportunity. That has all been the vestiges of racism since we got here. You don't just look at racism starting with yesterday or 10 years ago. You have to look at why the people that are here people are being racist against them, and the historical picture of racism.
Yeah.
thank you so much.
The very reasonable, understandable definition, and look at your smug little face, ready to like hand it over the What do you got for that? What do you
I think that is
Everybody.
That's
Next
everybody.
question.
Yeah, that's everybody. She has to go again because we're missing a panelist still.
But he just showed up.
Oh, he
He'll
just
be
showed
out.
up? Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next question. Is America a systemically racist country? And
Okay,
depending
so
on your belief,
wow, they're
how do
already on the next question. That's what I'm. Okay, I'm gonna stop it here because it's 38 minutes in. That's already plenty of time. It's a good place to stop after the first question, and yeah, I mean that's kind of gives you a good taste. So this will be part one, and we'll hopefully do a lot of it, if not all of it, and really dissect this stuff. I might hold off and then actually do research and stuff so I can disprove the stuff that I heard them say in real time, so you guys don't have to worry about that. But I don't know yet. Yeah, let's this will be a good place to stop. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Take care. Peace and love. Death to capitalism. And yeah, take care of yourselves. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Be well. And yeah, that seems good. Okay.